welcome back to the last video on how to build your own version of Twitter with Adalo. Now, we've covered most of the core functionality like building your timeline, adding tweets, adding a profile, etc. So I just want to now go ahead and clear up some of the secondary functionality that makes Twitter what it is. We're going to have a little bit here for mentions, we're going to have a little bit for explore, and we're going to go ahead and make this search menu functional as well. Before we get into it, I just want to touch on a few things from the last video. Now, I'm definitely a film everything in one take kind of guy. I don't really like to make choppy videos when I've edited lots of clips together. So therefore, occasionally I'm going to make some mistakes that are pretty obvious in hindsight that I need to come and fix. The first one is clearly in the profile section of the last video. When you pop in here, the text is running off the screen. Well, that's a really simple thing to fix. It wasn't the size of the list that was a problem, it was this little tweet piece of text. Clearly, horizontally, it's stretched right out over here. I'm just going to drag that, bring it back to, let's say about there. And if I pop back in and preview this, there you go. It's freed up and it's ready to go. So that's all sorted there. Similarly, we also talked about the ability to, how you could kind of make your user follow themselves by default on sign up. So we didn't have that option here, but the way to do that, again, pretty simple. When you come into the submit button, I've added it now, but pop into the bit that says update user, and you can pop in here and essentially add the change. So you could say, okay, the user is now followed by themselves, and you could also say they are following themselves. So you can do that as an action, an update action within the actual get started button of our setup screen. You could also do it here, by the way, on the sign up page here, whatever works for you. But that should now make us follow ourselves on the main menu. Now it won't do it because I've obviously not been through the setup page anymore, so we'll stick to just having the tweets from the other account, but that's okay. We'll sort that in a little bit via some other pages. So let's get started and build out a couple more things. I'm going to start with the search page. It's one of the most interesting ones, and essentially the idea here is we have this list and we also have this search box, and we want to combine them. Now, rather than use the search list that I've got here in front of me, I'm going to pop up and delete that straight out of the box, leaving me with just a search bar that Adalo generated by default. I'm going to take this little list over here, I'm going to copy it, paste it, which I've just done with keyboard shortcuts, drag it over here, and this just means I can have my same custom list that I'm happy with that lets me retweet things, favourite things, etc. And so what I'm going to do here is, well, the search box is pretty much set up by default. If I come into the list instead, I've already got a list of tweets. Now currently it's filtered by current tweet, users tweets, which is what we took from there. Instead I can select all tweets, I can add another filter, I can select a column, and I can say, we'll go to the tweet itself, and I'll say it contains, except rather than put something like logged in user, I'll simply go to the menu, and I now have this part that says form inputs. And form inputs is simply going to take the search term which comes from this search box. So it's now, if I start typing in there, it's only going to show me tweets which contain something related to whatever I've popped in there. Now we've already went ahead and set that up on our navigation menu. I'll quickly copy that and I will paste it in here as well. Oops. Of course, as usual, it is pasted back over there. If you take anything away from this video, it will definitely be how copying and pasting of components works. So drag that down there. Let's get rid of this little action button. I don't feel like I need that on this page. I'm going to delete that. And then we'll just quickly reconfigure this to say, okay, the active tab is the second one. Similarly, on the profile, we'll reconfigure that just when I noticed that out of the corner of my eye to say that's the active tab. So we're starting to select the active tabs here. And just to be sure, when you click home from the navigation tab on the search bar, it's going to link, of course, back to home. So there we go, everything else was already set up. And essentially that is all it takes to get search functionality working here on Adalo. There's nothing too complicated to set up. You can see the text field here that the user's typing in is called search term. That's what Adalo calls it by default, which is why the form input showed up as search term as well, just in case you were wondering or couldn't find that on your own screen. So if I pop in here, if I hit preview, and we hit search. I'm going to get a list of all the tweets by default. I could mess around with that, but now I can search to narrow it down to something. So I could say hello no coders, and then I can click on that. I'll get the same kind of stuff as before. Clearly the follow button is still having some issues. I didn't bother fixing that one, but you can see all the tweets in the profile. You can see the search is showing up, etc. I can search anything, search the word another, which I've used a couple of times in tweets, and that'll all come up in real time. You can do whatever functionality you want. Because you've copied over the list template, it's still going straight to the profile, but I could change that to show more or less anything that I like. Similarly, if we look at the mentions tab now, we can do, and with mentions there's a couple of ways you could do this. The way I'm going to do it actually is I'm going to take this list first of all, I'm going to copy that again, I'm going to paste it again. It shows up here, you can see in the top left it's now list 4. I'm going to drag it over here. And I'm just going to say all tweets where the tweet contains the logged in user's handle. So all tweets where the tweet contains that. You could put an @ sign or something in front of it, but you don't need to. It'll pick up the name anyway. And that one is pretty simple. Again, I've got to put my tab bar in there, so just copy that, paste that. We've got tab bar 4. Drag that right over here, make it align nice and easy, and you can see Adalo's grid lines will tell me exactly where to put it. We'll say the active tab this time is a third tab. We'll reiterate that the home tab needs to be linked. Always good, by the way, when you're about to launch an app, go through and make sure every single button does what it's meant to do. In your head, you'll be almost certain that everything's right, but unless you're an incredibly meticulous person, and to be honest, even if you are, it is always worth going through and testing all that, because your users will inevitably find the bug within about 5 seconds. So it's always worth going through and just checking everything works. For example, checking if you were doing this tab bar that you have linked that homepage on there. So we'll hit preview, pop back in, and if we go to mentions, it's now going to show the only tweet that actually mentioned Niall on here, which is of course the logged in user's name. Similarly, if I mentioned not Niall and then logged in as not Niall, that would show up as well. There's a few things you could do there. You know, you could put in a little button to hide this list and show, you know, all retweets of your own tweets, for example. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you could build up this menu, but it's all just about filtering. You know, changing around your list, maybe limiting number of items, etc. It really is as simple as that. It's just a game of putting different lists of your tweets on there and then filtering them whatever way you like. And so similarly, let me show you a couple of things that we could do to make this explore page interesting. First of all, I'm going to put the tab bar over there, just drag that. I've just done it off of the mentions page, so I don't need to set the home page this time, but of course I do need to set it to the explore page. So let's say, you know, we've got this homepage, it's only going to show you people that you follow. So similarly then in our explore page, we need you to be able to find people that you don't follow. A couple of ways you could do this, and by the way, you know, if you could set up a sort of onboarding experience here, you know, where you've got a new screen that shows various people you might be interested in. You could have a search tab where the user can search tags related to tweets that your existing users have already made. You could even hide this list unless the user follows somebody, and if they don't, you could have a list of people here underneath it that only shows if the user doesn't follow MD and lets them pick people to follow. But anyway, we can do some of that similar stuff here on the Explore tab. So I'm going to add a new element, and if I pop down, let's see what we've got. We'll go into lists. There's a little one here that I quite like called the avatar list, and I can drag that right along the top. And essentially I'm just going to have a list of people. In fact, I'll put a little label in rather than tell you. I'll just put a label in to show you exactly what I'm going to have here. I'm going to just have some suggestions of who to follow. Just put that there. And then I could just have a list of users. Filter that. I could filter that by all users. I could also say, for example, here, if we're talking about, you know, how to find the right people, I could say, right, let's find the logged in users, followers, their followers, you know, or the logged in users. Let's filter by everybody that the logged in user follows, and then the people that those people are following. So that would filter it slightly. Probably nothing will come up because I've obviously only got 2 users in here. So I'll maybe just take that filter out for now and show all users, but that is kind of how that would work. And then for the avatar image, we're essentially just going to say the current user's profile photo. Now it says current user because I've pulled a list of all users. When it says current user, it doesn't mean the current tweeter or the logged in user. It means this here, although you can't see it yet, is essentially a repeating data list of users from the users database. And this is just saying for each one, for each item, who's the current user, alright, pull their profile photo through. So it doesn't mean logged in user, doesn't mean current tweeter the way we did in profile. It just means that. And again, you could set that up, you could make that link through to the profile, pull that data through. One thing to note there, because this is all using current tweet data, if you were going to recreate the profile page coming through here, you might need to just copy this entire page, paste it again, and reconfigure all of the data to work with this. I won't make it clickable, just to save you watching me do that, but that is the way that you would make that happen. If there's no image, again, I'll just say don't show anything, but you could have a placeholder, you could have whatever, and of course add action, you would go through and link that. For the text, currently it's pulling in user's email as a magic variable. I'm going to say no, pull in the handle, and while you're at it, put a little @ sign in front of that as well. So we've got who to follow, and then we could have another little bit here, copy that text, paste it, drag it down, that says latest tweets. And I could just take this menu from over here, copy it, paste it, drag it, put it right in there. And what I could then do is just make sure the list is just all tweets, sorted by newest to oldest. And that is essentially an idea of how you can put together an explore menu. So if we pop in, let's hit explore. It's going to generate, and there you go. So it's pulling up people across the top. If I had so many users on this app that they were scrolling off the screen, then you'd be able to scroll them as well. And of course, we have got the list of all tweets showing up here, and I can interact with them just as I would anything else. You know, I can jump through to the profile, etc. It's all done and dusted. So that is essentially, in a nutshell, how you build most of the interesting functionality of Twitter onto an Adalo app. Let's just have a quick word on limitations, because clearly there's a few things to bear in mind. Now, as a caveat to all of the limitations I'm about to point out, Adalo's moving incredibly quickly. In the future, or even by the time you watch this video, some of the limitations I'm going to point out may have changed, but I think they are worth knowing, and I can speculate on workarounds as well. So the big key one, of course, is that I can only really put one filter on here at a time. When it says add another filter, all it is going to do is sort of build on top of that one. So right now I'm filtered by, you know, everybody who, or sorry, all the tweets by everybody my logged in users following. What I can't do at the minute is also see retweets by those people, or see, you know, retweets by from other people, or see, you know, promoted tweets or that kind of thing. Essentially, I've only got one list of one data in here. Now, there are various ways around that. You can create a list within a list. So, you know, you can manipulate that slightly to do it. You could also have a couple of other database collections where you save tweets, you know, retweeted tweets, for example, a little bit more individually, so you can then merge them all into one tweets database. You know, there's always a way to do something, but at this point you're starting to border into the advanced or the complex, and that's why I'm not going to cover it here, although it is the kind of thing that we'd cover in our forum. Again, another limitation just to point out is obviously, when I've talked about this slightly before, but here, if I wanted to create and link it to a new profile and have that profile work, you know, watch this. If I actually go and hit link to profile and say, yep, push through the current user, it won't work, and I'll show you why. I'd love if it did. Maybe I'll get a good shot, but I don't think it will. So if I pop in here, go to explore, let's hit now, then as I assumed, it won't pull anything through. And the reason for that, of course, as I mentioned, is this data is all linking from the current tweet. And of course, if you look at that data, we are not sending current tweet, we are sending current user. Now, there's a few ways you could mess around with that to get it working perfectly, but I'll just show you my favourite way, which is take the screen, copy the screen, paste the screen, there we go. And then I would just come in here and I would change that. So instead of user's full name, I'll just change that. It will still be user's full name, except this time it would come from, oops, let me link that, sorry. Come in here, need to link that through to this next screen. So we'll call that profile 2. Yeah, back there, if I go back to magic text now, yep, I've got current user. I can say here's a full name for this one. Instead of saying current tweet user, I can actually just say current user, grab their handle, and so on and so forth. You start to get the idea of how this would actually work. And of course, I've not reconfigured all of it, but if I pop into my preview just to show you that that does work, hit explore, hit now, and there you go. The information is kind of starting to show up there. Very clearly I need to drag that follow button down, but there you go. So those are just a few things to kind of bear in mind in terms of some of the limitations here in this implementation. Clearly that is shown through to the mentions as well. I'd love to be able to show retweets, you know, people to follow, etc., people who followed you, all in the same tab here, just as Twitter does. But you know, I think one of the things to keep in mind here when you're thinking about how to use this in your no-code app is, number one, there's always a workaround. You know, I could have a little list of buttons at the top of here, and one says, you know, retweets, one says followers, one says likes. Is it the absolute, you know, perfect solution you would want rather than just having it all in one list? Well, no, probably not. But I bet you it's a hell of a lot quicker and easier to use that than to code up your own custom algorithm to pull them all into one. And I bet as well your users probably won't care that much. So that is one other limitation just to point out there. But there's always a way around this stuff. So, you know, rather than try to build it key for key, clearly overall this is an imitation of Twitter and how it could look with Adalo's functions. And as I say, if you were really trying hard, you could probably do it a little bit better than I have, probably do more complex stuff. But you know, I think this is the basics. We now know how to show a timeline, we know how to do the repeating data list, we know how to follow people, favourite items, etc. So looking forward to seeing what you use this to build. Please share it in the community, and any questions let us know. Thanks very much for watching.